From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
Hello and welcome. All is now set for the All Progressives Congress National Convention as party delegates arrive Abuja for the event holding at the Eagle Square. Court dismisses case of $418 million Paris Club debt instituted by the 36 state governors against the federal government for lacking in merit. Respite for Governor Ben Ayade as court defers judgment on his defection from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress. And Russian army says the first phase of its military offensive in Ukraine is over and will now focus its war efforts in the eastern Donbas region of Ukraine. National news from our London studio.
On business news tonight, global ratings agency Fitch affirms Nigeria's credit rating at B with stable outlook, citing improvement in external liquidity and near-term economic growth from higher oil prices.
And on sports news tonight's 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifier underway in Kumasi as Nigeria's Super Eagles and the Black Stars of Ghana slug it out in the first leg of the playoffs.
All Progressives Congress has been rough and winding, characterized by intrigue, legal fireworks and administrative flip-flops. But the party appears to have weathered the storm and is now set for the exercise tomorrow. However, the contentious issue of the unity list still hangs around its neck as various committees step up arrangements for the successful conduct of the convention. And barring last-minute changes, the former governor of Nasarawa State, Abdullahi Adamu, may be coasting home as the new national chairman of the APC. According to the Nasarawa State Governor, Abdullahi Sule, this follows a consensus by the party leaders. Governor Sule, who was speaking on our program, Politics Today, said that everything is in place towards having a successful convention.
Adamu Abdullahi is a consensus. You can confirm to us tomorrow. He's almost, presumed as the chairman of the party.
He is.
Okay, interesting. But people are agitating.
Agitating for what?
We had people on the program yesterday that said this is imposition, not a consensus.
No, imposition is different from consensus. Consensus is one of the requirements. It's provided by our constitution, and it's not against the Electoral Act. Because some people are saying it's not in the Electoral Act. It may not be, but the Electoral Act is also not against consensus. So they are two different things. And that's the reason why, Mr. President refused to sign when we box each other to only one aspect of, selection, and they remove it. So since they remove it, then all the three options, direct, indirect, and consensus are allowed. And that's the direction we are going. So we are not in violation of the law.
And speaking of the APC convention, our correspondent Dele Momodu has been monitoring activities and now reports.
The Pre-Convention Policy Planning Committee put together this policy dialogue on the party's manifesto ahead of its convention. The dialogue provides an opportunity for the assessment of the APC administration in the last 7 years. The governors of Borno and Ekiti states believe the party has done enough to improve the fortunes of the country since taking over in 2015.
Responsibility bearers like ministers, heads of extra-ministerial departments are expected to give a scorecard, thereby striking the requisite nexus between party manifesto and government programs and activities. Subnational governments will also present records of synergy and collaboration between them and the central government.
I had the privilege of serving as the Director of Policy Strategy of the party in that 2015 campaign. So I can, with some authority, tell you what we campaigned on. And when you see what the government has done in the last 6.5 years, one of the important reasons why we need this policy conference for members and also for the media is not to allow others define us.
While the party is tidying up arrangements for the convention, the leaders are not oblivious of the provisions of the new Electoral Act.
Our delegates lists are actually statutory. There are delegates. So if you have a former president as political appointee, if you have a former senator as a political appointee, these are already automatic delegates. So let's not confuse the two. Just because being an appointee doesn't necessarily take you out of being a delegate. Because our delegates are classified clearly. Former president under our party, former elected this, elected that, party officials and the rest of that. I don't think anybody holding a political party office is actually right now a political appointee of the president or the governors and the rest of that.
Another contentious issue is the purported unity list, and some young people in the party are not ready to accept the list.
Unfortunately, what we are seeing now is the politics of imposition, where we have state governors and also the president himself imposing a candidate, on the party, which we believe that it is good for us to allow fair contestation so that there can be young people participating actively to test their popularity at the convention ground.
Meanwhile, the Eagles Square venue of the convention is wearing a new look as voting materials like ballot boxes and cubicles arrive at the venue. Each state is getting its designated spots, while the vendors put finishing touches to ensure smooth coordination of activities during the convention. Dele Momodu, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Federal Capital Territory has witnessed a large influx of party members. Finishing touches are being put in place as delegates prepare to take over the Eagle Square, from where our correspondent Terry Ikumi is bringing us an update on preparations so far. Hello, Terry. What's the atmosphere like over there?
Oh, hello, Ijoma. I'm standing in front of the state box at the Eagle Square. In just a matter of hours, that state box will be filled with top APC officials. The president will be here, the vice president, the senate president, and the speaker of the House of Representatives, as well as state governors. The city of Abuja is already crawling with visitors, delegates for the APC National Convention. State governors have come in with their delegates. The different candidates for the various positions have also come in with their candidates. And I must say that even though the convention is hours away, it does feel as though it has already commenced. And the reason is that all these delegates have already set up camp at different locations, different points of the Eagle Square, in and around the Eagle Square to be precise. And they have already started their own convention. If I must say that the music is blaring loud, the stage is set literally for the APC National Convention. And now I must say that ahead of this convention, last-minute meetings are being held to ensure that there are consensus candidates to an extent. Whether that will appeal to the bulk of the party members, we're not sure about that. But that will, to an extent, determine the length which the APC convention will expected to start at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And we'll wait to see how that turns out. But I must also say that security here has been beefed up. Sniffer dogs everywhere. The joint security forces, the police, the army, the civil defense corps, all here. Paramilitary agencies are here, so the FRSC is here to ensure that everything goes smoothly. And anyone who has no business here will not be allowed in. And the cordoning of the area is something that must be accountable because several hundreds of meters around the Eagle Square have been cordoned off, and only people who are supposed to be here will be here tomorrow for the APC National Convention. Now let me also add that the APC regards this as an epic national convention, considering that it has had its house in rubble for a while, and to an extent feels like it has sorted that out and ahead of the convention. So yes, we wait to see the crowd of people that will be here tomorrow. I must say that it is already crowded in and around the Eagle Square. A large number of people have entered the federal capital. The streets are lined up with buses that have conveyed the visitors into the city. Well, we wait to see how that turns out tomorrow. It's back to you.
Thanks a lot, Terry. Do keep your eye on that one. We stay with politics as businessman and publisher Chief Dele Momodu has joined the 2023 presidential race and has picked the expression of interest and nomination forms to contest on the platform of the PDP. Addressing journalists after picking the forms at the PDP National Secretariat in Abuja, Chief Momodu says it's time for Nigerians to stand against those he describes as career politicians who are bent on running the country aground.
I humbly come into this political contest with a pedigree of integrity, reputation, solid education, tolerance, business acumen, sharp vision, and competence. I possess everything it takes to win the 2023 presidential election on behalf of my party PDP, and I'll be greatly honored to get the ticket and support of my esteemed party for this purpose. With great humility, I declare that I am the bridge builder, that our party needs to regain the trust of our great people and nation. Leadership is not always about politics and politicking, but about managing people and resources successfully. Many of our political actors are those who would have failed, whether in business or in other things, including politics. The time has come for us that we should seek that leader who can take us out of the dead woods. On the issue of zoning or no zoning, I believe that allowing aspirants to buy their funds at 40 million suggests that the race is open to all, regardless of what part of Nigeria they come from. It is practically impossible for a political party to disqualify an aspirant on account of zoning after collecting a whopping 40 million for services not rendered. I'm therefore happy to join this race, and I'm expecting a level playing ground for all aspirants, as repeatedly promised by our respectable and cerebral national chairman, Dr. Iyorchia Ayu.
Now, all may be set for the APC convention tomorrow, but it does not appear so for the People's Democratic Party, which has filed a suit at the Federal High Court in Abuja, challenging the governance structure of the APC and its planned convention. The opposition party is asking the courts to order the Independent National Electoral Commission to deregister the APC. It claims that the APC, by its entire structure, has run foul of the stipulations of the Constitution running a political party. According to the PDP, by a certified true copy of INEC's list of current EXCO, the APC is being run by a 13-member EXCO, which is below the constitutional stipulations in Section 223 of the 1999 Constitution that requires the EXCO or governing body of a political party to be drawn from 2/3 of the 36 states of the Federation, which is mathematically 24. The PDP is therefore urging the court to declare all the prior acts of the Wemala Buni-led caretaker committee leading to the institution of the suit, as well as all subsequent acts, including tomorrow's convention, as null and void. In part two, after the break, court dismisses case of $418 million Paris Club debt instituted by the 36 state governors against the federal government for lacking in merit. That's in a moment. Do join us then. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. All Progressives Congress National Convention holds tomorrow as party delegates arrive Abuja for the event. Court dismisses case of $418 million Paris Club debt instituted by the 36 state attorneys general against the federal government for lacking in merit. Respite for Governor Ben Ayade as court defers judgment on his defection from the People's Democratic Party to the All Progressives Congress. And Russian army says the first phase of its military offensive in Ukraine is over and will now focus its war efforts in the eastern Donbas region of Ukraine. In a matter of hours, the All Progressives Congress will take to the Eagle Square in Abuja to elect national leaders in what some have said will be a make or mar event. In this next report, our political correspondent Seun Okinbaloye takes a look at the leadership of the APC and what the future holds.
It is perhaps the most turbulent period in the life of the 8-year-old ruling All Progressives Congress APC. Sometimes trouble brews when general elections are close. Since its inception, you may be right to say it is perhaps the most tumultuous period of its corporate existence, turbulence which struck to the very root of its existence. Since 2014, 3 national chairmen have led the party. The first being Chief Bisi Akonde. He was the first and interim chairman until an election which led to the emergence of the former governor of Edo State, John Odege Oyegun. Thereafter, another former governor of Edo State, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, succeeded John Oyegun. The tough and labor union approach of the Adams Oshiomhole tenure was characterized by internal and legal tussle, which resulted into a short-lived period of Adams Oshiomhole at the helm of affairs. The National Executive Committee of the party then intervened and brought about a midwife. The May Mala Buni-led caretaker committee, a leadership meant to pilot the affairs of the party for not more than 6 months, but has stayed for almost 2 years.
Thank you very much.
The Buni-led caretaker committee has experienced great internal troubles, and the allegations of sit-time has seen some dramatic political interplays within the party. The APC is now faced with a decision to determine those who will lead it, hopefully, for a 4-year term. Some say it is a make-or-mar situation.
Install the party chairman. Everybody wants to show of power, and using the office they presently occupy to actually install who becomes the next APC chairman.
Some other people are of the opinion that the Buhari factor in the APC is what has kept the political association together.
I can guarantee you that there is a conspiracy of silence. Many people don't want to talk because the president has chosen a direction, and that could make or mar the success of the upcoming convention. I hope we don't see this kind of thing.
Like any other political party in Nigeria, whose leadership is always confronted with internal intrigues and crises. But the reality is that the stability of a ruling party is crucial to a smooth running of government, and hopefully there might be a driving force to engender internal democracy. Seun Okinbaloye, Channels Television News.
To legal matters now, the Supreme Court has upheld the deregistration of 22 political parties by the Independent National Electoral Commission. The parties were among the 74 scrapped in 2020 by INEC following their poor performance in previous elections. INEC had instituted an appeal against the judgment of the Court of Appeal, Abuja Division, which had nullified the deregistration. Justice Ejembi Eku set aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal on the grounds that the court on its own raised the issue of lack of fair hearing in favor of the 22 scrap parties and arrived at a conclusion without hearing from other parties in the matter. He further upheld the appeal by INEC as being meritorious and allowed. INEC had on February the 6th, 2020, deregistered 74 political parties for failing to win any political office in the last general elections, a decision that was thereafter challenged in court by the Advanced Congress of Democrats and 21 other parties. Meanwhile, the Federal High Court in Abuja has postponed till April the 6th, 2022, its judgment on the suit filed by the People's Democratic Party asking to declare the seat of the Cross River State Governor Ben Ayade and his deputy Ivara Isu vacant following their defection to the APC. The presiding judge, Justice Taiwo, had earlier fixed judgment for today and did not adduce any reason for the postponement of the verdict. In its suit, the PDP is praying the court to sack both Governor Ayade and his deputy, contending that having abandoned the political party that sponsored their re-election, they ought to vacate their respective offices. Justice Taiwo had, in a judgment he delivered on Monday, sacked 2 federal lawmakers and 18 members of the Cross River State House of Assembly for their defection from the PDP to the APC. The lawyers have, however, the lawmakers, that is, have appealed the judgment. Let's cross over to Abuja now. Here's Markwe Ogun Yusuf. Markwe.
Hello, Ijoma. We continue with the judiciary and at the Federal High Court, Abuja, where Justice Inyang Ekwo has dismissed a suit by the Attorneys General of the 36 states against the federal government, challenging the planned deduction of $418 million from the Federation account. The deductions are meant to settle debts owed consultants engaged by the state and local government in relation to the Paris Club refunds. Delivering judgment, Justice Ekwo held that the Attorneys General had not shown enough evidence to accord them the right to institute the action.
Senior advocates of Nigeria and other lawyers involved in the suit filed by the 36 state attorneys general against the federal government, challenging the planned deduction of $418 million from the Federation account to settle debts relating to the Paris Club, are here waiting to hear the verdict by Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja. The state attorneys general had filed the suit on October the 27th, 2021, with a total of 43 defendants, including judgment creditors. Justice Ekwo had in November last year restrained the federal government from making any deduction from the Federation account to settle the controversial judgment debts until his court's resolution on the issues. Delivering judgment on the suit, Justice Ekwo held that the state attorneys general lacked the legal standing to institute the lawsuit without their governor's consent. The court held that the contention of the plaintiff that it was not party to the judgment debt did not hold water because the Nigerian Governors Forum and the Association of Local Governments are parties in the suit. Justice Ekwo further notes that the action of the plaintiff amounts to an abuse of court process. Reacting to the judgment, counsel for the Attorneys General, Jibrin Okutekpa, holds that the Attorneys General of the states are the representatives of the state and do not need the consent of their governors.
For the very first time, that the Attorney General of a state or of 36 states cannot complain about what is being done to their states by taking money from the coffer of the states to pay judgment debts that the states were not party. I'm wondering whether that is what our constitution says. But every day you learn. I'm happy that this is a court of first instance. There is also the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court.
Counsel to 2 of the defendants, Mr. Olushola Oke, however, has a different view.
The court did not say that the Attorney Generals had lacked locals to institute action on behalf of their state. But he said in this matter, where the action of the governor is at the center of the suit, that they could not come without the consent of their governors, and secondly, they ought to make the governors respondents so that they can be heard, because it was their action that was being questioned. Up by the attorney, by their own appointee. They didn't dispute the actions of their government, they are challenging it. That is what the man called incongruity.
The last probably has not been heard in this matter, as both parties are looking at meeting at the Superior Courts for the determination of the $418 million suit filed by the 36 state attorneys general against the federal government.
Meanwhile, a federal high court sitting in Lagos has ordered the final forfeiture of a vacant plot of land located at Plot 13, Block 11, Oniru Chieftaincy Family Private Estate in Lekki, Lagos, linked to former Petroleum Minister Diezani Alison Madueke. Justice Akintayo Aluko made the final forfeiture order of the land to the federal government, sequel to an application moved by a legal officer with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Abbas Mohammed. The interim forfeiture was granted after the court read the affidavit in support of the motion paper sworn to by Abdurrashid Bawa, now the chairman of the commission, which was argued and moved by the EFCC's head of legal section, Mr. Anselm Ozioko. While staying with anti-corruption matters, the president is urging the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, to avoid being used for partisan politics or get dragged into personal disputes, but focus on serving the nation to entrench good governance. President Muhammadu Buhari gave this charge after unveiling the standard operating procedures and policy document of the EFCC at the council chambers. He also urged all operatives of the commission to resist the temptation of being influenced by political actors for personal gains. Our State House correspondent Gloria Umezioke reports.
In demonstrating his administration's commitment to the fight against corruption, President Muhammadu Buhari arrives the council chamber for the unveiling of the standard operating procedures, policies and manuals for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Commending the EFCC for developing the documents aimed at strategic reforms in the Commission, the President cautions the leadership of the EFCC against any involvement in politics.
I must advise the leadership and operatives of this administration to resist the temptation of being used to partisan politics or be dragged into personal disputes. Your job is to serve the nation in the efforts to entrench good governance.
Clearly, the performance of the Commission within the last 1 year resonates deeply with the President as he promises to continue to support the Commission to ensure the sustainability of the initiatives, which is expected to actualize a corrupt-free society.
We have ensured the operational independence of the anti-graft agencies, strengthened the legal framework, empowered the regulatory agencies, and provided adequate funding to support the fight against corruption.
The unveiling is part of the ongoing reform in the Commission since Mr. Abdurrashid Bawa came on board as chairman. More reforms are expected from the Commission as part of the chairman's 5-year strategic plan, 2021 to 2025.
What for an EFCC, where as the executive chairman, if I issue the directive to a junior officer, he will look me in the face and say, "Sir, I understand your instruction, but I cannot carry it out because it is contrary to our policies or standard operational procedure." I'm glad that we have delivered to the EFCC a unique DNA with these documents that will guide the conduct of officers and men of the EFCC.
The EFCC has so far secured 2,220 convictions within 1 year and recovered over 152 billion naira as well as $385 million. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Still ahead on the news at 10, global ratings agency Fitch affirms Nigeria's credit rating at B with stable outlook, citing improvements in external liquidity and near-term economic growth from higher oil prices. That's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Outside our shores, 6 Nigerians have been named by the United States in a list of people alleged to have ties with terrorist group Boko Haram. In a statement, the Department of State spokesperson Ned Price listed the individuals as Abdurrahman Ado Musa, Salihu Yusuf Adamu, Bashir Ali Yusuf, Mohammed Ibrahim Isa, Ibrahim Ali Al-Hassan, and Suraju Abubakar Mohammed. Part of the measures by the U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control is that the listed sponsors have been blacklisted. It adds that the individuals belong to a network connected to Boko Haram, and all 6 were found guilty of establishing a Boko Haram cell in the United Arab Emirates to raise funds for and provide material assistance to the insurgents in Nigeria. And that's all from Abuja. It's back to you, Ijoma.
Thanks a lot, Mark Ware. 11 victims of kidnapping, including a military official, have been rescued from a forest in Nwode local government area of Edo State. According to the Edo State Police Command, a combined team of its operatives from Egba Division and Vigilante in the area carried out the rescue operation. Some of those rescued were said to have been traveling to Lagos when they were kidnapped on the Benin-Lagos bypass. And over 48 hours after the fire outbreak at the Apongbong area of Lagos, traders are racing against time to beat the deadline set for eviction by the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. Meanwhile, the diversion of traffic is already taking its toll on motorists. Our correspondent Chris Lems reports.
Whether by car, bike or on foot, these Lagos residents just want to get to their various destinations, the barricades notwithstanding. If you desire the luxury of commuting without hold-up, be ready to pay the price, which includes a ride against traffic.
Enter bus, 2 hours, 3 hours to reach island. Only this thing will make us to reach in time. Okada, they collect expensive money, 1.5 Aguda, to reach Apombo.
The chaos created by the surge in motorbikes and the pressure on the already fire-gutted bridge may itself be a danger lurking around.
There is about 3 pillar there. It has been collapsed. So they have to block that place, and there is not people to be climbing it again. When you look at this, you see a cloud of people there, parking machine, doing all this. It's not supposed to be there. There has to be security man that monitor that place very well.
Meanwhile, the Akbongo market is still smoldering 48 hours after the Wednesday fire incident. Affected traders are seen milling around what once was their source of livelihood, now a turf for scavengers. Afolayo is one of such traders. He has plied his trade here for over 15 years, but lost all he has had to the inferno. Now he can only watch as the remains of his shop is broken in bits for ease of evacuation.
Not easy at all, because we hear from Lagos State government that we should live here in the next 24 hours. So we don't know what to do. We are just trying to remove all those containers so that as they order us to remove all our goods, we just try to remove everything so that we can just live here.
Over 300 traders are said to be affected by the incident, which has led to an eviction notice by the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. And the lamentation continues.
I don't even know where I can start, because this is where I'm managing with my children. Since that time now, nothing. Don't have any money, even to eat safe. It's only God can help us and our government.
While a lot of the affected traders are still trying to come to terms with what has just happened to them, for others, the struggle continues as long as life goes on. Chris Lems, Channels Television News.
Let's take a look at some business now. Here's Teniola Shubawadi.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Ijoma. Nigeria's long-term credit rating has been affirmed at B with a stable outlook by global ratings agency Fitch. A statement from Fitch cites the affirmation to expectations that higher global oil prices will drive an improvement in external liquidity and support near-term economic growth. The forecasts are based on Fitch's December 2021 oil price assumptions of $70 per barrel in 2022 and $60 per barrel next year. However, the ratings agency listed larger fiscal deficits, intense external liquidity pressures as factors that could lead to negative rating action or downgrade for the country. Meanwhile, the price of international oil price benchmark Brent crude price rose by more than 1% to $120 a barrel today. This comes as traders try to reconcile the impact of a missile attack on an oil distribution facility in Saudi Arabia and another possible release of oil by the United States from Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which could be bigger than the sale of 30 million barrels earlier this month. Both the Brent and the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude have notched their first weekly gains in 3 weeks, up by 11.5% and 8.8% accordingly. While global stockpiles are at their lowest since 2014, analysts say the global oil market remains vulnerable to any supply shock. The Nigeria Customs Service says it is yet to adopt electronic valuation and invoicing policy for importers and exporters, which was recently introduced by the central bank. A statement released by the NCS says the agency could not adopt the new policy due to restrictions by international treaties to which it was a signatory. On Friday last week, the NCS mentioned that it would support the CBN's electronic invoicing and valuation policy if certain conditions are met. And outside our shores, Swedish audio streaming and media services provider Spotify says it's pulling out of Russia entirely, citing that recent laws restricting news operations could put its employees and listeners at risk. While making the announcement today, the company mentioned that it expects operations in the country to be fully suspended by the end of April. Earlier this month, Spotify said it would close an office in the country and remove Russian state media content. Other tech firms, including Apple and Google, have pulled back and stopped offering products and services in Russia. Well, it's a flattish positive close for the local stock market as it stages a mild rebound from the moderate LSS recorded in the previous session. Layo Adigoke tells us more.
Thank you for joining us for the stock market report. The local equities market made some gains at the close of trading today. That's after struggling with some bouts of profit-taking at intraday. Investors took advantage of the recent drop in the price of some bellwether stocks. About 2 billion naira was regained in the total value of equities listed, and that also reflects the mild 0.01% rise in the market's main index, which fell below the 47,000 level on Thursday. While the mild rebound recorded comes largely on the gains in the share price of blue-chip stocks such as GT Co, Zenith Bank, PZ Cousins, and the impact also rubbed on their sectoral index performance, as you can see, on the screen. However, the activity chart was not so vibrant as total volume of shares traded was lower by 17.52% in contrast to Thursday's transactions. Number of deals dropped by 3.25%, while the value of equities transactions was higher by 59.21%, and that's due to Nestle's share, which led the trades list in value terms. So far, the market has been negative this month, but we keep our hopes high for the final 5 days outcome next week. And that's it on the stock market report. I'm Layo Adegoke.
Thanks a lot, Layo. Now let's find out how major global stock markets ended Friday's trading session. And that's Business News Tonight. It's back to Ijeoma for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Teniola. Russia says the first phase of its military operation in Ukraine is mostly complete and that it will now focus on completely liberating eastern Ukraine's Donbas region, which contains 2 pro-Russian breakaway republics. However, Western officials believe the announcement implies that Moscow knows its pre-war strategy has failed. Here's Simon Pusey with more and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The United States will supply the European Union with more liquefied natural gas to help curb its reliance on Russian fossil fuels. US President Joe Biden made the announcement as EU leaders met to deal with an energy crunch triggered by the war. The pact follows a day of 3 summits. The agreement will see the US provide the EU with at least 15 billion additional cubic meters of the fuel by the end of the year. Currently, Russia supplies 40% of the European Union's gas needs and more than a quarter of its oil imports.
Putin has issued Russia's energy resources to coerce and manipulate its neighbors. That's how he's used it. He's used the profits to drive his war machine. And that's why earlier this month I announced the United States would ban all imports of Russian energy, to make it clear that American people would not be part of subsidizing Putin's brutal, unjustified war against the people of Ukraine.
Ukrainian officials say 135 children have been killed since the invasion began, with the numbers of casualties continuing to rise. An official has also confirmed that an estimated 300 people died in the attack on this theatre seen from a satellite image in the city of Mariupol. An advisor to the deputy mayor there said nearly 600 people were inside the theatre before the attack. Meanwhile, the head of the UN human rights team in Ukraine said that monitors had received increasing information on mass graves.
We are trying to look into the scale. We have, for example, got increasing information on mass graves that are there. For example, one mass grave we've been able to get satellite information on, and we estimate that one of those mass graves holds about 200 people.
The Polish border guards say that more than 2.2 million people have now fled Ukraine to Poland since the beginning of the war. Numbers crossing the border have been falling in recent days, but Thursday saw a slight increase, with 32,500 people making the journey, up 7.4% from Wednesday. Meanwhile, Hollywood actor and director Sean Penn said he had never witnessed the kind of welcome that Polish people gave Ukrainian refugees before.
I want to say, first of all, that in no such circumstance have we seen a host nation in a refugee crisis offer so many open doors from a governmental level to the individual family level.
An Australian journalist will face court in Beijing on state secrets charges after being detained for more than 19 months. Cheng Lei, who worked as a television anchor for Chinese state media for a decade before being detained in 2020, was formally arrested a year ago on suspicion of illegally supplying state secrets overseas. Australia has previously said it was concerned by what it said was a lack of transparency around the case. She has been separated from her children, aged 9 and 11, who were visiting their grandmother in Australia when she was detained. Spain's transport minister has agreed to meet with striking truck drivers after they rejected a €1 billion support package aimed at defusing a 12-day walkout over fuel prices. Minister Raquel Sanchez announced the measures, which included a rebate of €0.2 per litre of fuel and €1,200 bonus, after all-night talks with transport associations. But within hours, the unofficial truckers group that launched the strike on March the 14th rejected the proposal and began blocking Madrid's central La Castellana Avenue. Officials have confirmed that Australia's Great Barrier Reef is being devastated by another mass bleaching event. It is the 4th time in 6 years that such severe and widespread damage caused by warm sea temperatures has been detected. Only 2 mass bleaching events had ever been recorded until 2016. Scientists say urgent action on climate change is needed if the world's largest reef system is to survive. And Britain's Queen Elizabeth is expected to attend a memorial service next week for her late husband Prince Philip after the 95-year-old monarch cancelled a public appearance earlier this month. The Queen's health has been in focus since she spent a night in hospital last October for an unspecified ailment and was then instructed by her medical team to rest. In February, she caught COVID and suffered mild-like symptoms. Buckingham Palace released details of the service at Westminster Abbey in London to give thanks to Philip's contribution to public life. He died aged 99 last April. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. Ghana and Nigeria settled for a goalless draw in the first leg of the 2022 FIFA World Cup playoff played at the Babayara Sports Stadium in Kumasi. Both sides cancelled out each other out in a game where few scoring chances were created. The game was played in front of a packed crowd, singing and chanting in support of the home team. The return leg will be played at the MKO Abiola Stadium in Abuja on Tuesday, March the 29th. And Nigeria's under-20 women national team Falconets expect to pick their ticket to the 2022 FIFA Under-20 Women's World Cup when they host their counterparts from Senegal in Benin City on Saturday. Forward Flourish Sebastian hit a hat-trick in the first leg before the home team earned and put away a penalty in the final seconds for a 3-1 victory for Nigeria. The Confederation of African Football has appointed officials from Eswatini to take charge of Saturday's encounter. An European football governing body, UEFA, is set to approve the new financial framework on April the 7th, and clubs will have a flexibility of up to 10 million euros. According to UEFA, clubs will have 3 years to adapt to the new regulations, which dictates that expenses should not exceed 70% of what they generate. Clubs that do not respect the new rules will be relegated from the Champions League to the Europa League or from the Europa League to the Conference League. Should a Conference League team not comply, they will be thrown out of the competition and will not play in Europe. Now, reigning world heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk has left war-torn Ukraine to begin his preparation for a rematch with Britain's Anthony Joshua. The 35-year-old holder of the WBA, IBF and WBO belts came back to Ukraine to defend his family as soon as Russia invaded his home country on February the 24th. Usyk defeated Joshua last September by a unanimous decision in front of a home crowd in London. Joshua immediately voiced his readiness to face Usyk again in a bout that might take place as early as this summer. And Ukrainian athlete Valentina Veretska, who fled Russia's invasion of her country and took refuge in Israel, has won the Jerusalem Marathon. Veretska claimed the women's title with a time of 2 hours, 45 minutes, 54 seconds, displaying the Ukrainian and Israeli flags as she crossed the finish line. Veretska said she took part in the Jerusalem race to raise awareness about the situation in her home country.
It's a very difficult marathon, but we did it. I hope today everybody hear me, and I send my love. I send full my life to all the world to make a peace. I hope very soon everything's finished and we life in hand smiling again.
And that's where we'll wrap it up on Sports News at this hour. I'm Victor Matthias. It's back to you, Joma, with the wrap of the news at 10.
Thanks, Victor. And the main news again. Preparations for tomorrow's National Convention of the All Progressives Congress today reached fever pitch as party delegates arrived at Abuja for the event. Arrangements for the convention have been characterized by intrigue, legal fireworks and administrative flip-flops. Also today, court dismissed the case of $418 million Paris Club debt instituted by the 36 state attorneys general against the federal government for lacking in merit. And the Russian army said the first phase of its military offensive in Ukraine is over, and it'll now focus its war efforts in the eastern Donbas region of that country. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. Do have a great weekend. Good night.